remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby. Smoke and mirrors, pretty lights.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and good morning to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley and with me is the delightful Nelly Thomas. Hi
Oh,
there,
delightful.
Nelly.
Thank you, Jo.
I love having you with me on this
love
show.
being here.
Comedian and podcaster.
Yes, among other things, as you know, in the showbiz.
Yes.
You do what you do.
Quick plug for your podcast right at the top though.
Oh, please. So it's called The Single Life of Us. And it is myself and Kate Mulholland, who we affectionately refer to ourselves as two old moles, sometimes two fat old moles, but we're owning it. Both relatively recently out of long-term relationships, talking about navigating middle life, single parenting, being back on the shelf.
Back on the shelf.
Single,
I
ready to
like.
mingle.
Yes, with a real affection for it. I mean, embracing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so I'm really sick of that narrative of sort of being single and middle-aged being a failure. You know, we're actively trying. It's not that we avoid the hard stuff, but there's a lot of really positive things too in that sort of sense of autonomy and freedom and new possibilities. So, and we have a good laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, dating at this age, I tell you what, Jo. It's wild out there. It's a jungle.
I can't even begin to tell you how terrified I would be.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I love that you're doing that podcast, though, because, and it kind of falls into the theme of today's show,
Yes,
I reckon, which is
does.
women helping women
Yep.
get through the things that are kind of hard about being a woman.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I think, as is the theme of today as well, sort of reframing narratives. Is that we've got these very strong cultural narratives about what does it mean to be, in my case, almost 50 and a single mum. It's all doom and gloom. In fact, it's not. Like, there's hard stuff and there's amazing stuff. And it's the same with all the content we've got today, I think.
Yes. So today we do have 4-time Olympic gold medalist Libby Trickett joining us on the show. She's going to be
Olympian.
amazing.
Proper one.
Golden girl.
I know, of the pool.
She was. I mean, she totally informed a lot of my sort of that era of loving the Olympics and
Me
swimming.
too.
Libby Trickett was right there. But she also is normalising conversations about mental health
Yep.
and finding joy despite the challenges of life. She's shared so much about
Amen,
what she's
sister.
gone through. Absolutely.
Yep.
Then we're going to take a deeper dive into perinatal mental health and the specific needs of mums of new babies and all of that that sort of that spectrum of the journey of trying to have a family.
But no, Jo, it's all fine. It's all
Oh,
great.
yeah.
It's a wonder. It's a joy.
It's magical.
And if you say anything otherwise, you don't like your children.
Apparently not. So Dr Nicole Highet from COPE, which is the Centre for Perinatal Excellence, is joining us to talk all about their amazing campaign called #The Truth. The Truth.
The truth. Yeah. Truths, I imagine.
We're going to face the truths.
We are.
And then we're wrapping it up by speaking with Jess Fraser, who is one of Australia's first black belts in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, female black belts, I should say. And she just is a trailblazer when it comes to empowering women and girls by just getting them on a mat and having them smush each other in the face, it seems.
I'm into it. I'm here for it. It sounds a lot like my online dating.
Everything comes back to that.
Everything today is going to come back to me and online dating.
So, well, what have you been up to apart from the online dating? How is it going?
Oh, look, I tried to go out in the wild. I actually tried to go out to a bar, you know.
Okay.
Kate, who I do the podcast with, is like, I just don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to, like, you know, in like the 1980s, I want to meet someone in a pub and just like have a pash and then call them a week later on the landline. Like,
does that even happen anymore?
I don't think that happens anymore. But I did go out Friday night, which is rare for me to be out late because I go to bed at 9. I don't know about you, but you know.
Pretty much 9:30.
Yeah, 9:30. And I was out until like 1 in the morning, Joe.
Look at
out
you.
in the wild in Collingwood.
Oh my God.
And we're at the...
It would take 3 days to recover from that.
It really has. It really has. Met some German backpackers, was there with it. You know, it's a whole thing. And I go up to the bar at this place and I order a drink and then I go, is your name Charlotte? And there's this fabulous young woman there. Turns out I used to be her nanny. Nothing makes you feel older than the fact that you've nannied a toddler who is now serving you drinks at a bar in Collingwood.
Were you sort of all, cock a hoot going, I feel fabulous,
I really
I'm out
was.
on the town.
I'm having a margarita.
And then you just deflated.
Oh, my God. I couldn't have got out of there quick enough. I tried to stay for like 5 minutes because I was there with a friend. And I was like, she's like, no, come on, stay. We'll hit the dance floor. And I literally said to her, no worries. And I jumped in an Uber and texted her from it and said, I'm out of here.
Oh, you ghosted her.
I did.
So was Charlotte's response, was she excited?
Oh,
to
she
see
was
you?
so excited. We had a fabulous time. I was her nanny for 3 or 4 years and her little sister. So we were close and we're Facebook friends.
Okay.
So we sort of know each other as adults in a weird way, but, via social media. But geez, I couldn't have felt older, Joe. I mean, I already had lifted the age range at this bar by a good 10 years.
Yes.
I was coping with that
until
I saw little baby Charlotte.
And how old's Charlotte now?
Well,
I bet she's not even 18. She's probably 24 or something.
No, she must be 22, 23, I'd say. Yeah. And she's
wow.
a drag king and she's fabulous. And she's, I know.
Look, well, you've had a little part to play in
Well,
Charlotte.
I like to claim some of it.
I think so. I was out on Friday night also.
Were you?
Yes.
Until that late?
No. I had done Coast Trek on Friday,
yes,
so
of
walked
course.
for 7 hours down along the Mornington Peninsula, down sort of right at the very tip, Point Nepean.
7 hours.
7-hour walk.
Look at these lifestyle differences. I'd been drinking for 7 hours. You'd be walking for 7 hours.
Still a marathon, doll.
Still a marathon.
You know,
You're right.
it takes effort.
You're right.
But we then went out for dinner that night and we were at like a beautiful pub down in Sorrento, sort of a beachside suburb in Victoria, Melbourne.
Heaven.
It's almost Melbourne.
Victoria, yeah.
Anyway, it's a classic country pub in that you've got the restaurant and then there's a nightclub attached. And one of our friends, the team of 4 that you do Coast Trek with, one of them, I don't know how, because I could barely walk, she says, let's get into the nightclub. I'm
Hang
like,
on.
you are nuts.
You've walked through sand for 7 hours and then someone says, let's boogie.
Exactly. I was like, all right,
no.
we will sit in a booth and watch people boogie.
Yeah,
That's effectively what
totally.
we'll do, right?
We'll judge.
Very happy to do that. That's my skill set, right? But as I walked in, I was okay.
Yeah.
And it's, again, classic nightclub in country town where you have all ages and that's fine. Because there's nowhere else to go, right? So it wasn't like I was lifting the age like you were.
Sure.
There were people
Thank
of
you
all
for
ages
reminding
there.
me. Yeah.
But I sort of strutted in, said g'day to the bouncer as I walked through because that's what I do. I like to make friends with the bouncer.
Can I buy you a drink?
You never know. But because I sat there for a good hour, I seized up. And so
Oh, you cramped from sitting.
I walked in, probably my age, 49,
doll.
and I walked out 75,
You
maybe
sure
90.
did.
And I was just like this.
You sure did.
The bouncer, he's just gone, rough night. And I'm like, I've only had one drink.
I know. You know what I've been doing? I've been walking. Walking and walking and walking.
In the old days, it was my podium work, but not anymore.
Darling, this might make you feel better. I wore heels. When I say heels, they're chunky. It was a
Sure.
boot. Like, we're not talking stilettos.
No.
And
because
even
you're not
now,
stupid.
Because I'm not stupid. Several days later, my knees are still sore.
Oh.
So if there's any indication that I was in the wrong bar, other than the nanny, let that be it.
Well, maybe next year you would swap the heels for doing Coast Trek and do some sand walk.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't walk for that long.
No.
Yeah.
It's surprising that you can. It actually is surprising that you can. And I need to just mention that because I'm an ambassador of Coast Trek and we have done this beautiful collaboration with Coast Trek that I would love you to check out. It's Broad Radio Coast Trek Collection, which is our lovely sort of mini series, podcast series there that features interviews with Di Westaway, who is the founder of Coast Trek, Kemi Nekfapil, one of the most powerful coaches and speakers just in the country, Dr. Rosie Worsley, where we talk about menopause, Kathy Lett, self-explained. She's incredible. Kaz Cook, of course. And do you remember we chatted with Ellie Cole, who is Australia's most successful female Paralympian? She's in that series as well. So check out Broad Radio Coast Trek Collection. And while you're there, you can also check out all of the previous episodes of Broad Radio with Broad Radio on the go. Lots of opportunities to get your head around some fantastic conversation. And while you're joining us live today, we would love you to share your thoughts and comments and just join in the conversation via Facebook, YouTube.
On the socials.
Do it.
Is it good for your head, that a walk that long?
You learn a lot about yourself and your team members. So it is good for your head, but it also really challenges your head.
Yes,
in
I
an
can
interesting
imagine.
way. But I have to say, we stayed overnight down there, and on the Saturday coming back, I have never felt more relaxed, and I think it was partly because I just had walked out everything.
Because you have to sort of go through again, metaphor for today, you have to approach pain to clear it, don't you think? Like if you've got difficult thoughts, inverted commas, you have to actually get to them to be able to get past them.
Yes.
So I imagine when you're walking, you can't help, it's like meditation, you can't help but avoid those things, and then you've got to clear out.
Well, what's interesting with Coast Trek is you do it with a team of 3 girlfriends usually, although there were guys there, which was awesome to see. So when I run, I'm on my own and I'm managing my own thoughts that way.
Yeah.
But when we were there with a team, you just talk and you're sharing because you get through the niceties in the first hour and then you just start really talking.
Then you get into, and you're side by side, so you haven't got the intensity of eye contact.
Yeah,
I used to work in welfare before comedy. If we had difficult conversations, we'd go for a drive. Yeah. Because a lot of people can't do that sort of straight down the barrel eye contact. You don't get into it.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes, so great. And it's women who are really, a lot of them exploring their physicality for the first time in a long time as well. We passed a lot of people who are physically struggling. In our team, we had both mental and physical, challenges. It was fantastic. And so that leads me to our first guest today, who also is an ambassador for Coast Trek. She's, I think, the Sunshine Coast, which is on the 15th of July. So check it out. It's an absolute joy to welcome Olympic legend podcaster and mental health advocate Libby Trickett. Hi, Libby.
Hi,
Good
Libby.
morning. Thank you so much for having me.
So as I said, I just completed Coast Trek on Friday. I only did the 30 Ks.
Only.
Well, people do 45 and 60.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean that's silly though. That's silly.
Yeah.
It's too much.
30's enough, surely.
Well, when I was finishing the 30, I was thinking, how could people be at halfway in this point? Like that just, I don't know what kind of mental strength they have, but much more than I
Although
have.
we are talking to an Olympian who must have for years been swimming at 4 o'clock in the morning. So how you can do that is beyond me.
Swimming is different to walking though. It is a lot less taxing on
For
your
you.
body. Yes, for me. I am not a land-based mammal, so walking for me is a big challenge. But yes, swimming for 35 hours a week for the better part of a decade. I don't know how I did it, to be perfectly honest.
Honestly, Libby, I've read your memoir has like just that insight into an elite athlete's mind. And I will forever, and we've been lucky enough to chat with quite a few. Chloe McArdle, who just broke the world record of swimming the English Channel. Ali Cole we spoke to. That you're a different breed.
Oh, yeah, you're not right.
I have said forever, I'm not sure whether the chlorine affected my brain or whether we were just that way, like just born that way. But you have to be a special breed of human who has a real intensity of focus, is able to just literally swim up and back on a 50-meter pool for hours and hours on end. And I loved it. Like it sounds so boring, and I don't know how anyone actually gets into swimming, and I actually did it for the better part of my life. But I love it. It's an incredible
I get it though.
sport.
I mean, I assume you get it. When you're a stand-up comedian, people are always like, oh, you know, how could you possibly enjoy being on stage in front of people with that terror? I mean, that's one of the places I feel calm. So I imagine for you, I can't imagine swimming 50 hours a week and feeling calm. But it's just, we're just built differently.
Yeah, but the thing that got me about what I read, you know, in your own words, was that it was this desire to be the best, which I don't have. Like, I just couldn't care less.
That's why you're a comedian, darling.
But you were just so driven. Even as a child, you just loved the race, which that sets yourself up for a life of torture as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, look, again, yes. It's an interesting thing. I think it does definitely set you up for some mental health challenges. And again, I wonder if that was kind of part of me, and that's why I channeled all of that energy into swimming, because I wanted to be the best. I wanted to see how far I could push my body and see how strong I could become and see how fast, or, you know, who else I could potentially beat. It's a very intense lifestyle, and it's a very intense kind of way of being in the world. And
yeah.
it's definitely taken some, you know, counseling and therapy and meditation and mindfulness practices to kind of get me to the point that I am now here at 37 and don't completely beat myself up on a daily basis. But when you have something to channel that energy into, it makes it a lot easier. I think the time that I found most difficult was that period of time when I had retired and hadn't found my next
transition
passion to kind of channel my energy into, because when you're in that limbo, you still have this energy that you want to get out of you, but nowhere to put it. So that's been the most difficult part for me, I think.
I don't think people really understand what that transition must be like for elite athletes. And I think often we kind of poo-poo it and go, oh, how hard can it be? I mean, you know, boo-hoo, your life's been so hard. But actually, you are totally redefining who you are in a way that I don't think many of us sort of go through that with such extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very acute phase, but everybody goes through life transition, right? Everyone goes through trying to reimagine or re-understand who they are, whether it might be through, you know, career changes, career transitions, transitioning into parenthood, transitioning out of high school or out of university, and into actual retirement. I mean, obviously I've retired, but I'm still working, and I can't just kind of hang out, you know, playing golf all day. You know, there are all these big life transitions that we actually all experience, but with athletes, it's, I guess, a lot more in the public eye. It's kind of much more spoken about, but I think it actually applies to a lot of people in different situations.
Well, and I wonder with you, Libby, not just in the public eye, but, you know, when you said before, you know, Libby's joining us from the Sunshine Coast, when I think of Libby Trickett, I think sunshine because you have, and I'm sure you've been told this before, you have the most like radiant smile and face and presence. And therefore, from the public's point of view, it's like, she's fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
she's fine.
Or they don't like knowing you're not fine because you are our golden girl, and they're like, "Oh, don't show a side to you where we can't believe you're fine."
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and you know, especially kind of growing up in that environment, because I was 18 when I first broke onto the Australian team, and pretty quickly came into a team that is the golden period of time. You know, it was off the back of the 2000 Olympics, and, you know, we were still being incredibly successful. And yeah, there was a lot of pressure and expectation that I placed on myself, let alone what I felt kind of coming in. And yeah, I kind of did, I think I've always felt that pressure, like even just within family, I felt like I was like the good kid within my family. And I think that definitely contributed to wanting to put out into the world that I was happy and fine and everything is great. And, you know, when I was swimming, that was just pure joy, because that's exactly what I loved. But you know, I think I also realized that within families and within life experience, and certainly as I came into retirement and then into parenthood where I experienced postnatal depression, I realized that everybody has challenges. Everybody, like, you know, I'm an Olympian, well, not, I am an Olympian. I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I, you know, have been generically successful in, you know, the broad sense of the term. And, you know, I find life hard. Like, life is hard. There's so much that we're all dealing with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's, you know, aging parents or sick kids or relationship stresses, financial pressure. It like, just life is hard. Like, it just is. And
can I just challenge one thing, Libby? And that is, this is me mumming you, and I please forgive me, but you are not,
I love it,
like, subjectively successful. You are successful, right? If you're not successful, the rest of us are completely screwed. And I
really appreciate that.
I think it's like, I really actually think it's important. I don't know about you, but I try and with young women that I sometimes am in the role of mentoring, I think it's really important to just own that. And, you know, if someone says, oh, you know, Nelly, you're a good speaker, to go, thank you, instead of talking them out of it, which is what I used to do.
That is one of my favourite things to do, is accepting compliments at the moment.
Well, you're very successful, Libby.
Thank you.
Well done. I love it. Can we get to, you've now created this amazing program called Unlocking Her Potential with your co-founder Paula Hindle, and when I sort of did a deep dive into what led you to create this program, a lot of it was around your experience of postnatal depression. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so it's talking about that transition, right? It really comes back to that for me. I think there was placed a lot of pressure and expectation on myself that I would be a good parent, because I kind of imagined that that's what I would do after swimming. That was the only thing that I knew that I wanted to do, was to be a parent.
And do you mean perfect parent? Because good parent's different to perfect mum.
Absolutely. After the first 4 months with my daughter Poppy, it was pretty good. Like, she was sleeping 8 to 10 hours overnight. She wasn't sleeping during the day, and she was a little bit grizzly, but I was like, I'm nailing this. Like, I don't know why everyone finds this so hard. I should write a book. And I think I felt like the universe kind of knocked me off my perch, because at 4 months she kind of went through a really bad sleep regression, and she ended up, it was probably about a period of 4 or 5 months where she was waking every 45 minutes overnight. Or overnight and during the day. She just decided sleep wasn't for her, which then therefore meant sleep was not for me. And it was that combination of just intense sleep deprivation, which nothing can prepare you for. Like, that is something, until you experience it, you just have no idea what that feels like. And then that pressure that I was putting on myself to be this perfect parent, to, you know, there are so many women all around the world that are having babies and look like they're fine and coping and managing. And here I was, an Olympic gold medalist, and I can't even get my baby to sleep. Like, how crap am I at life? And that really, it really floored me. I think I wasn't prepared for, you know, you have these ideas of who you're going to be as a parent, or how your baby is going to be. You know, I imagined before I had kids that I was going to have 2 blonde-haired boys. I don't know why. That's just what I imagined. And I ended up having 3 brown-haired girls. And the first one was just so intense and cranky and hard that I blamed myself. I assumed that was all my fault. And it took a really long time, and, you know, a lot of really dark thoughts about harming Poppy and harming myself and wanting to disappear, before I finally took the steps of getting the help that I needed. And I think part of the therapy that I've experienced is being able to talk about those experiences, because that makes that lightens my load. You know, I think you were saying before, Nelly, like if we need to look at the hard things and we need to feel and not run away from them. And I really took the time to kind of process all of that and understand that I'm not a bad parent. I am actually doing my best. And to be able to talk about that experience and the feedback that I get from other women feeling the same way and feeling like they're not doing enough or being enough or they're not worthy or they're being a crappy parent or whatever it might be, it just, I feel like it lifts a load off people's shoulders.
Oh, it does.
So
and it's also, Libby, I think it's a counter as well, because I reckon part of the issue, especially if you have that type A personality, is that we have this false sense of control. I've read the books, I did the classes, my first daughter didn't sleep either, and I was beside myself. I remember ringing my nana, and this will help you, I think. She had 12 kids, and I'd done the sleep classes, I'd done the books, I'd done everything, and she just went, babe, some of them don't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the relief of me thinking, oh, this isn't because I didn't read the right book or didn't follow the instructions properly or whatever.
Or I didn't love her enough.
Don't sleep. And even though I was still sleep deprived, I now wasn't guilty.
Yes.
You know, so hearing her say that was a relief.
Yeah.
There's real power in just releasing that guilt and shame that we feel.
I don't control everything.
Yeah, we can't. We absolutely can't. And that's led me to starting a business with my business partner Paula. Unlocking her potential is just, it's everything that I've kind of dreamed about doing in one business. And it's crazy that it's out in the world now. It's only been out for about 4 months, but yeah, it's so much fun. We have so much joy. We talk about incredibly difficult, traumatic experiences that, you know, both Paula and I have had through our lives, but we're able to find those pockets of joy in every single day. And that's not easy. It's not something that's comfortable all of the time, but, you know, it's choosing to show up for yourself every day. And we hope that we can help support other women to do the same in their lives.
So what kinds of experiences are you hearing women are bringing that they feel they need some help to kind of lighten that load?
Well, I think, you know, there's so much baggage that we in general carry from, you know, whether it's from childhood or through school or through, you know, those transitions into parenthood or understanding who we are now as adults. You know, who do we want to be when we grow up? That's something that I'm still grappling with. But it's definitely the majority of the things that we're getting, we're having conversations with women about is that feeling of not being enough. We're just never enough.
God,
and that's
why?
Why?
Culture, that's why. Culture.
Yes, look, there's so much, I mean, there's patriarchy.
Yeah, it's true.
We've been conditioned to feel like we're never doing enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not thin enough, we're not...
Or we're too much. Enough. We're either too much or not enough. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that is really heavy to carry for a lot of women, and it influences... It infiltrates every cell of our being. So for Paula and I, that's something that we really want to try and help women drop, to just let go of that, because it's not helpful to kind of go into every life situation, every decision that you have to make with that sense that you are not enough.
It's also not accurate. It's also not accurate.
100%
compared to what?
Yeah.
What am I not enough of?
I feel like it's sort of so it's a lie that we swallow and becomes very ingrained. And I'm telling you because I'm so old, I'm a lot older than you.
I know exactly what you're
Libby,
going to say. Yeah.
I'm a lot older than you and I turned 50 in 6 weeks. And I just don't care anymore. Yeah. I just don't care. I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not enough that I've gone, oh, Jesus, if this isn't enough, fuck it. I don't care.
You swing wildly to the other end, don't you?
So, but what I want is to impart that into women who are in their 20s and 30s and teens so they don't have to go through what we've gone through to get to this point, I suppose. Yeah.
100%. And I'm definitely getting to that moment, right, where I'm just like, I don't care. Like, this is me. Like, either accept me as I am or just go away.
Take it or leave
I said
it.
it a little bit. You were a little more polite than I was just Libby, which I love. So,
hey, I'm all about the swearing. I'm like, just get I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. So we really encourage you to check out Unlocking Her Potential, because the program is really beautiful. I know that you and Paula bring lots of wonderful, really lived experiences to this program as well. So congratulations on it, Libby. It's just awesome. Good luck with Coast Trek in July on the Sunshine Coast. Yes. Do check it out. And also Libby has a podcast as well if you want to learn more about elite athletes and what makes them tick. All that glitters, my goodness. You're an inspiring bunch.
Indeed.
Well done.
Good on you, Libby.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys are fabulous.
Thanks, Libby.
Awesome.
You are
you are
too. You are too. You have a good day.
You too.
I'm in a new stratosphere.
Well, from that lived experience of postnatal depression that Libby Trickett just shared with us, to a brilliant campaign created to raise awareness of the hidden struggles faced by thousands of people on their path to parenthood. And whoa, there's so many struggles. Hashtag The Truth is by the Centre of Perinatal Excellence, or COPE. Fantastic acronym there. And we're joined by the founder and executive director of COPE, Dr Nicole Highet. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, let's start with COPE. It is a fantastic acronym because I think, Nelly, we've already said that you go into parenthood thinking, everything's going to be magical. And then you realise the best you can hope for is cope.
Yeah.
To cope. You founded this amazing organisation. What led you to do that?
Look, the really clear thing for me was that, we had a number of organisations that focused on mental health broadly, but when it came to this time of life and this life stage, there are very unique challenges, and it was really important that we provide access to quality information and support which specifically relates to the unique challenges that people often face at this time, but people are often not aware of because these challenges are not spoken about openly. And when they do happen, therefore, people are left feeling like I'm the only one who's not coping. I'm the only one who's not got this, and I'm a failure as a person and as a parent. And we know that really impacts on people's emotional and mental health. It increases the rates of anxiety and depression. It increases the likelihood of suicide. But focusing on mental health broadly and the challenges broadly is not the same as this life stage. And we need to be honest and speak the truth about the challenges at this life stage. And that's really why COPE was developed, and really giving that dedicated focus on this particular time of life when challenges are very unique and expectations are different and very, very high.
I think one of the interesting things, Nicole, that I wanted to ask you about is there is such very specific cultural messages about motherhood. And this is why I think it's so great that you're not talking broadly about mental health, but specifically talking about the mental health of parents and, in my case, being a mother, because I think one of the difficulties when you have a baby is that you've got these expectations of yourself, but they're also cultural expectations that you didn't make these up in your head. You're supposed to be happy all the time. You're supposed to be coping all the time. You're supposed to be well turned out. You're supposed to be breastfeeding. You're supposed to be able to make the baby sleep in some magic universe. There's a whole heap of shoulds that women aren't just conjuring up.
No.
Like, they are actually in the ether, and very few of us can meet those expectations.
Absolutely. And look, when you're having a baby, it's the first time you've done it. You've got no reference point. So you're trying to build up this idea in terms of your identity and who you're going to be and what type of mother you're going to be. So you've got to get that from other places. So often we get it from television, beautiful commercials or beautiful magazine images. And now more than ever, we're getting it from Facebook and Instagram. And those are the images that people are trying to project, because they're often trying to show people, I've got this, look how successful, look how good I am. But that's also setting the bar at a point that it's not realistic, and it's not the reality of day-to-day life as a parent. And it's certainly not talking about the struggles. And So because there is no reference point, we're building up these expectations based on what we see and therefore we believe must be how it is supposed to be. And then when those expectations don't meet our experience or our reality, this leaves parents feeling like they're failing or they're not good. And that in turn impacts on their mental health as well.
Absolutely.
So this leads us to the hashtag The Truth campaign, which is really beautiful. The videos are just gorgeous. They're so well shot, and they're obviously featuring people who are sharing their real experiences, and not just around early parenthood, but you have the full spectrum of, you know, the grief that trying to become a parent can bring as well. So you have the loss of a baby, you've got infertility, you're covering, as well as
pregnancy difficulties,
you know,
birth
and
trauma.
the birth trauma, and all of these very real experiences. Do you feel as though by sharing, you're shifting the narrative, and how are we going to actually make the women that we're talking about and fathers understand that it's not them?
Yeah, like, so really the power in the voice of the consumer, so people talking openly and honestly about their experiences, lets people know that this is going on and it is happening for people. Also, listening to the words of people describing what it's like for them is the most powerful way of people identifying with that experience and saying, that's exactly how I feel. So I'm not the only one. And also giving people insights from those other people's experiences about how they got out of there, what was important, what gave them hope, what gave them treatment or support. So letting people see that they can relate to the experience of someone, know that they're not alone in their experience, and know that from learning from others how they got help and what worked for them gives people hope and courage to learn and draw on that to say, well, I also relate to this and I can get out of here as well. And really, I suppose quite often campaigns just focus on postnatal depression. You know, certainly postnatal depression is very important, but there are so many things that come before postnatal depression, and focusing on the illness, it's too late. You know, we want to focus on the things that can come first, whether they're things right at the beginning of the journey for some people who are struggling with infertility, the impacts that has on all aspects of their life, their personal life, their relationships, their friendships, their finances, all those challenges that then often, that even if people do become pregnant, those challenges and that anxiety then carries through. So these things are there and hidden, and we need to expose the reality and what they actually feel like, because they are ultimately contributing to mental health problems. And it's too late just to focus on, you've got postnatal depression. It's like, well, actually, challenges started right back here, and we needed to identify and get support right back here, and potentially that might have prevented the postnatal depression occurring in the first place. So it's too little too late just to focus on illness in the postnatal period. We need to recognise these challenges at each stage, talk about the challenges, make people realise they're not alone in these experiences and struggles, and that there is information and support available early to get through it early, rather than waiting till too late.
And Nicole, I wonder, just on the back of our chat with Libby, like, I personally find it really helpful when I see women who I think, like her, are very successful, who quote unquote have it together, admit to difficulty. Like, I am a twice failed breastfeeder, right? So whenever I do media interviews when my kids were little, I made a point of saying that, because I think people see women in the public eye and think, oh, well, they're funny and confident and they speak well and they must have everything together. I was devastated that I couldn't breastfeed, absolutely devastated. But I think it's really important for women to hear other women say that, I tried and I couldn't do it and my kids are okay.
Absolutely. It just shows that not everything goes to plan, and not everything is we hoped it would be. And it doesn't mean you're not a successful person or you're not a good mother. These are hidden challenges, and they can happen to anyone. But there is so much expectation and so much pressure and so much judgment if people are seen not to be able to do all these things, because it's seen as a reflection of you as a person and as a mother, and it really does impact on your emotional mental health. So people talking openly about the struggles does give permission And it does help people realise that they're not alone. And, your whole identity is not whether you could breastfeed or not. Plenty of people struggle with breastfeeding. And unfortunately, I do think we've got a long way with working with health professionals to better manage that, because I do think, certainly from the research, a lot of that guilt and shame and feeling of failure is often magnified by people's experiences with health professionals, particularly when, in that early stage when you've just had your baby.
Oh, yeah.
You're trying to establish breastfeeding.
Yeah.
You're exhausted from the birth. You're highly emotional. One of the pillars of grief, I would say, there's 3 pillars of grief: becoming pregnant in the first place, birth and birth trauma and not having the birth that you hope for, and breastfeeding. Those are all 3 key milestones which, if people are having struggles, because there is so much tied up with those, that they really identify you as having this and being successful. And if they don't go well, they really do impact on emotional and mental health and your sense of accomplishment and achievement as a mother.
When I watched the Truth Campaign videos, one of the things that really it reminded me of is how much grief people are actually carrying around with them every day. That you absolutely have no idea. For myself, infertility, then a sick baby, then, all of these sort of things that I go, oh, wow, I still have that.
It's right there.
Yeah.
And you don't realise until you touch it.
And you just go, my God, I'm still holding that. And so what is something, just as we finish up, Nicole, what is a takeaway? What's something helpful for the fact that people are walking around with this grief? What can they do with it? What's going to be useful for them?
Well, it's really useful for them to talk about it, talk about their experience, and putting it out there is acknowledging the pain that you've experienced. And you can't get support from others if you don't put it out there to let people know that you're needing support. And the other really powerful thing, I think, is by you talking about your struggles, it enables other people to realise that they're not alone in their struggles as well. If we carry it around and pretend and trying to live up to the Instagram images and trying to portray to everyone that everything's perfect, and that's not the reality, we're not able to get the support that we might need, and we're also continuing to perpetuate this myth and not expose the truth about the hidden challenges, and we're basically not really able to support each other or build a culture of understanding and support around the challenges that come with becoming a parent.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, it's so true.
true.
Nicole, thank you so much. I love the campaign, and your centre is really beautiful.
Good on you, Nicole.
So thank you.
Yeah.
It's just been awesome to have you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Australia's harsh sun is proven to visibly age women by up to 20 years faster than those in the US. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis, we've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Well, before we get to our next guest, couple of little things. Firstly, on our socials, thanks to those who are following along and sharing their comments and thoughts. Dr. Lillian Nihad, who I just adore, she's one of our regulars. She says, so important for people to be open about these experiences because they are not uncommon and you are not alone.
Yeah.
Penn McEnroe says, in a room of university graduates, you can't pick the breastfed peeps.
No.
Unless they're still attached to the nip.
I used to, which can happen in some areas.
Yes.
I used to do a joke about that, kind of going, obviously breast milk is superior, but, formula is not Scotch and Coke. No. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's chill.
Let's chill.
Let's chill.
Beautiful Donna Stolzenberg says, Nelly, you're not a twice failed breastfeeder, you're a twice tried breastfeeder.
Oh, thank you, darling Donna.
Oh, we love
Do you know
Donna.
the amazing thing with that too? If I think of my nana, who did, as I said, had 12 kids, she was in an environment where she would have been around other women all the time with lots of other children, and you would have seen
Exactly.
other women who had struggles with breastfeeding or sleeping or whatever. We don't see that as much now. It's a
true.
curated image.
It's absolutely true. While we're celebrating amazing women, I wanted to just mention this moment in time in Queensland. Oh my God, they are killing it in Queensland for the first time ever in this country. And I'm wondering how often this happens around the world, in fact, in that state.
Yeah.
The Premier, the Governor,
Yeah.
the Chief Justice and the Police Commissioner are
All chicks.
women.
I know.
We have Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, Governor Jeanette Young, Chief Justice Helen Boskill and Police Commissioner Katarina Carroll.
And of course, Jeanette Young was their Chief Health Officer through
Yes.
COVID, which is how many of you would recognise her face.
Yes.
She was on the TV all the time. It's amazing, isn't it? Because you think of, like Queensland traditionally is very conservative. And it's gone from like 0 to 100. It's gone from, you think of it as being conservative environment, and now the 4 top jobs are held positions of power by women. One of the things Jeanette Young said, though, which I think is really important to remember, it's not a coincidence. Like, this hasn't happened by accident. When Peter Beattie was Premier and Anna Bligh were Premier, they deliberately cultivated an environment where women would be put into positions of power. We don't just magic it up.
Yes.
It has to be deliberate.
And the other really beautiful thing is it is remarkable, but also let's work to a time when it's
also
not.
not.
It's not worth putting on the cover of a magazine in the way that those women were.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really important to celebrate, but
Yeah.
there's much work to be done. But all of them speak about how they were asked, at times, being the only woman in the room, can you get the coffee? Or, we're going to talk serious business now, so the woman better leave. And, all of those sorts of barriers that they faced. Childcare particularly as well was a barrier. So
huge barrier. All of them talked about childcare, and that's a massive issue at the moment. My kids are too old for childcare, but I hear...
Isn't that annoying?
Yeah, I know.
If you'd like to, it would be nice
How
to dump
often
them
do you hear at the moment with the skills shortages that one of the most massive issues is that there are women who want to work and there's no childcare?
Oh, yes. That's why we say it's not welfare, it's an economic policy.
Correct.
Childcare. Anyway, amazing time, and let's celebrate it for Queensland. Well, while we're on the subject of trailblazers, let's welcome our next guest. She's not only a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, she's dedicated her life to training, mentoring, coaching and empowering women and girls in Jiu Jitsu, and to creating a culture of gender non-bias on every mat in every gym in the world. I love it. Jess Fraser, hi.
Hi, Jess.
Oh, we don't have any sound.
No, we haven't
Let's
got sound
see
for
if we
Jess.
can sort that out. Speak to us again. No.
Oh,
Oh,
dear.
no. Well, can you obviously can hear us okay. And I'm
The
not
joys of
sure.
technology.
Oh, we're going to ask you to close out and open the connection again, the link again, because this does happen every now and then. Jess is joining us from Christchurch,
Ah,
across
beautiful.
the seas.
Do you do any martial arts? Or have you?
No, I've done 1 half-hour session.
Oh, did you do
that
like
was
a
a self-defense thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would tell you it was absolutely profound.
Yeah.
Because she taught me. So if you take my wrist,
Yeah.
right, and I pull,
Yeah.
that strengthens you. But
Yes.
if I push into it, right, that takes away your strength.
Isn't that
And it just-
Aikido? That's an Aikido principle.
Well, you sound like you're right across
No,
the
well,
martial
I haven't done it at all. But one of my kids does Aikido,
Mm.
and they basically the idea of it is that you use the power of the aggressor against them.
Yes.
So if they're heavier, for
Right.
example, or they're stronger, or they've got
Okay.
a bigger personality, the bigger they are, the smaller they'll fall, the harder
I
they'll
can
fall.
hear you. I can
There you
hear you
go.
laughing there, Jess. And do you agree with what Nelly's saying?
I missed most of what you said, but
Oh.
I just love that you guys are talking about martial arts.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
We're
because
trying.
I was just sharing the one thing that I learned in a self-defense class once was about leaning into the aggressor, and for me it has been a total shift in my mindset when I'm sort of struggling with any kind of engagement is to kind of lean into it rather than really fight it.
Nice.
But back to you, Jess.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Oh, that's okay. These things happen. So, as one of the first women in Australia to actually reach black belt, tell us about the bias in jiu-jitsu, because this being one of your goals to shift that needle.
Yeah, so I mean, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in Australia has been around for about 20, 25 years, and I was the 12th woman in Australia to make it to black belt. It's a long journey to black belt, on average about 10 years. So, it takes a little while to cultivate somebody that's an expert in the area. But given that time gap, you can sort of get an idea of how male focused it was before people like myself turned up and started working on changing that. Because the sport itself can be done by anybody, it's not specific to men. And in fact, women doing this sport, we've got really strong lower bodies, and that's where this sport is focused, is on using the lower body. So stepping into that space 12 years ago and trying to take up space has been challenging and, worth it. I know that people would understand that martial arts would be difficult for a woman, I understand that there's that bias. I don't think it is more difficult for men than women, but trying to make people understand that the difficulties for women in the sport are not the physicalities, it's actually the bias. So every time I step into a space and leave, it's like, oh, wow, that's surprising, and I just don't think it is. It's I find the sport totally engaging and that I was built for it, and I meet so many women that are in the same boat, and it's just about changing people's perceptions of what it means to be a woman that wants to fight. A lot of us just enjoy fighting, it's a really fun thing to do.
I love the idea of, you use the word grappling, which I love, that there's a physical definition of that rather than I grapple with thoughts and ideas and people all the time, but to actually be physical. I love the notion of that. Am I too old to start?
No.
To get on a mat?
Definitely not.
No, not too old at all. In fact, so I run a large organisation called Australian Girls in Gi, and we're nationwide, and it's a community to bring women together because, they might be in a gym in Ballarat and maybe there's 3 girls there, but they want to make contact with the wider community. So we provide that service, and I've been doing that since 2010. Most of the women are over 35. I think that people have this idea that it will be young women or mainly girls, but most of the people involved are over 35. I'm 42 myself, and I would be bang in the middle of the age group of who's on the mats.
And do you think, Jess, is some of it's countercultural for a woman to own wanting to fight for a start, just especially physically, but even verbally to be able to defend yourself. But do people look at you, and I can't see you, so I don't know how big or small you are, but do people look at women and go, oh, you're too small, physically to be able to match it with the guys?
Sure, yeah. So there is that idea that we're either too small, too big, too soft, too whatever. That there's that overview for women just generally. And what I find is the biggest hindrance for women coming into the mat is not their body, it's that they're too nice. We've been conditioned to be nice, to be quiet, to make a scene, all that sort of stuff. And that's more often than not what I'm trying to change in women when they're on the mat. It's just launch yourself at people. They can protect themselves. That's the sport, the perception of us wanting to fight. Unfortunately, the marketing for women when it comes to fighting is all based on self-defense. Yes. And I, a trigger warning if this brings stuff up for people, because my area of expertise often talks about violence against women and that kind of thing. But for me, the motivation is not self-defense, it's to be an expert at something and to start at something that is extremely difficult, take that on and work towards. You're on a journey that can't get to perfection, but it's working towards just development of self, development of understanding of others, connection with community and all that kind of stuff, and much CrossFit is marketed to women as come be a badass, get strong, get fit, get in connection with this worldwide community. But for some reason, fighting is always marketed to women as, oh, you must only want to do it to defend yourself, and it's just not true. Like I can't imagine CrossFit being advertised as like, well, you better lift weights in case, you know, a fridge falls on you.
Yeah.
It's because you want to enjoy, you know, you want to enjoy the sport.
Yeah,
Like,
I love the notion of like stop being nice and launch yourself at someone, because that's it's power. It's not being you know, unpleasant. It's not being unpopular or mean.
But it's
girl.
also just picking up on what Jess said. It's something to do with taking up space.
Yeah,
it's like young women coming into stand up, where you go, you're allowed to take up space on the stage. You're allowed to be heard. You don't have to apologise for your voice. And it sounds like that's the same challenge in jiu-jitsu. You're going to go, you are allowed to throw yourself at that. You are allowed to use your body in that way.
Yeah, totally. And we've got this thing. So before we start any round, you like tap hands and bump fists, right? So it's just a very jiu-jitsu thing. But it's the permission to go. So there is a boundary. Like I can stop at any point. That's the beauty of the sport, right? So we don't get punched in the face. We don't hit each other. We're actually wrestling like, you know how you play with your kids or nieces and nephews and you're like fight and wrestle on the floor and there's no actual violence in it. There's just play and kind of, you know, finding out who ends up kind of on top and you can pin them down for a bit. That's our whole sport, but it's just got a whole bunch of rules and techniques to it, you know? So you get that connection with men and women. You get physical connection with men and women that's of a non-sexual nature, which I think we lose as adults, you know, like, and kids have the permission to continue with. So you've got that awesome connection, but also like our sport, when you get to the fruition of the sport, which is a submission, right? So it's a joint lock or a neck manipulation that would otherwise hurt you, we tap. So we like literally tap out, say uncle. So it gets all the way to that point that you might get hurt or you could potentially get hurt and you get to say stop. So to me, that's really empowering in what that means to create boundaries. And it's like, cool, I'm ready to go. We slap hands, bump fists. You can launch yourself at me. Like I'm prepared for it. So it's not a self-defense situation. We both want to be there. We play and then I can say stop whenever I want to make it stop. Anytime I want to make it stop. So it's sort of like doing boxing, but be able to say like, nah, when that punch is like, you know, like.
I just love it.
I love it.
It's so great. And I will say, so my daughter plays footy and one of her greatest challenges is the physicality of it. So what I'm doing is we go down to the dog park and just wrestle on the soft grass so that she can get used to. That's it. Come on, babe, just get in there and, you know. But so I need to mention Australian Girls in Gi. We actually, I mentioned on our socials that you were coming on the show and I had another woman say, if I hadn't found her and Australian Girls in Gi, I would have been quickly intimidated out of the gym all those years ago. So, and already we've had some other people saying, oh, Jess, it's amazing. So you've got a lovely following out there because you're, I think, giving women a space, that permission. Word again, permission. But just to sort of go, well, this culture of gyms or whatever, not for me, come and find another place.
Yeah.
I'm not there to be skinny and pretty. Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
I was just saying, I think for a lot of women, I find this myself, is that, you know, the gym seems like a place where you're meant to go to be skinny and pretty. Whereas, you know, what you're offering is like a far more empowering kind of physical environment that's about fitness and well-being rather than appearance and femininity even.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, like the beauty of jiu-jitsu is your hair ends up sideways. You both kind of like laugh about it, you know, like nothing about it is pretty, but you also you're so present in the moment while someone's launching themselves at you.
Doesn't matter.
Like, yeah. And also like what I love about the sport is every single body type has an advantage on the mat. Like, so size is actually something we celebrate and that's rare in sport. I love it in powerlifting. I love it in our sport. I love it in things like shot put and things like that, where bigger women who like, predominantly women are bigger that are in the sport, you know, they can roll with the guys and it's just not an issue that they're small or that they're big, you know, it just becomes a non-thing. And that to me is like peak. Like if anything, I've always wanted to get more sizable in my sport, you know, so the focus isn't a diet, the focus isn't an aesthetic, the focus is an output. And whatever you already are has an advantage in our sport, and we'll
this
celebrate
sounds good
it.
for me.
Oh, you should, whatever you already are,
Oh,
babe.
I won the shot put, doll. I won the shot put.
Oh,
So, Jess, you seem to be someone who really tests the boundaries mentally, because I know you've just taken up skateboarding as well as in your 40s, which, to be honest, I look at that and think, are you determined to break every bone in your body?
How good's your health insurance?
That's right. But can you, just to wrap up, because this has been, I suppose, a show in which we're kind of imparting knowledge for people, what is it about your mental mindset that allows you to test yourself in that way?
I just want to always be learning, and I don't want to do sport just based on an aesthetic, so I always want to be moving forward with something. I find being on a treadmill kind of arduous. It's just not for me. But if I'm pushing on a skateboard and learning how to just stay on a skateboard, it is cardio, like it's the same sort of stuff. I'm still getting the same benefit as exercise, but I'm so distracted by trying to progress that I just don't even think about it. It doesn't become a task in my life. It becomes something that I crave to go and do because I want to learn, so I guess that's part of it, but also like wanting the challenge and stepping into it is a mindset that I've always had. I want the journey to be slower than easy one. And that's kind of, I guess, what's driven me with all of it. And also just like finding a way to have fun. You learn a lot while you're having fun. So if you can keep focused on that as the goal, like kids learn through play, and I'm trying to find those spaces of play in my life and continue them, like really lean into them.
Would you say you're fearless though? Because I think I don't do that shit because I'm scared.
No, I'm scared. I'm scared all the time.
Yeah.
Skateboarding especially, I'm scared all the time. But learning to quiet the mind, I'd rather be scared of trying to do an ollie than be scared of my public speaking or whatever it is that I need to do that is like real life scary stuff. Learning to be brave in those moments. I can learn bravery outside of really scary things like real life interpersonal relationship stuff or like trudging through trauma. Like I can learn how to be brave and to trust myself under 100-kilo dude that's trying to choke my face off, like, so I'm scared, like for sure I'm scared, but like just learning how to trust yourself and to trust others and to trust like I said with tapping, learning how to trust that I will say no when it's enough, and I need to learn how to say no a little later sometimes than maybe my base instinct is, and to find out what's in it.
Jess, surely that helps you learn to say no in real life too. Definitely. I mean, again, the curse of how we were raised, especially from our generation, is to people please as girls and say yes and be nice and compliant. Yeah. And it's very empowering to step into your 40s, and I imagine jiu-jitsu helps you in this respect and go, no thanks. Yeah, definitely. Not doing that. Yeah. Not just on the mat, in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me is the self-defense of jiu-jitsu. Like a lot of it is taught as actual techniques like you've done in your self-defense class, and that's like totally valid. But for me, it is the soft skills. That's are more important that you take away, and you're like, no, like, if somebody asks me to roll and I'm scared of them, I'm allowed to say no. Like no. I'm allowed to just, and to take the bravery in that confined environment on a nice soft mat where you're with your teammates, and if you're feeling uncomfortable, like, no, saying it out loud once, getting the reps in, when you can do it there, you can totally take it outside into your life and utilize it in the real world, for sure.
Well, I said at the top of the show that I'd bring everything back to online dating, so let me do that.
Please.
And go, if someone says, can I buy you a drink at the bar? It's okay to go, no, thank you.
No, thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not go, no.
And then when they get sulky, not to feel bad about
that's
it.
exactly right.
That's on you, mate.
Yeah. On your way. On your way, son.
Don't ask a question if you don't think that I'm allowed an answer.
That's right.
Not,
oh.
Love it. Oh,
correct.
What a great way to finish the show. Oh, Jess, it's been delightful to have you on the show. And let's mention that you are in Christchurch because there is an event there that you're running for Australian girls in gi. And can people still register for that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm actually in Queenstown, so I'm down south.
Queenstown.
And the event is, that's it there. The event
in New
is
Zealand.
in 4 weeks' time. So it's the first one that I'm running in New Zealand. New Zealand does run women's camps without me before I arrive, but while I'm here, I'm keen to do one. And then I'll head home and start running them again in Australia.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jess. I just learned so much, and don't think I'm going to get on a mat or a skateboard.
I feel like exercising, and that is miraculous.
Awesome.
You've inspired us. Thanks so much, Jess.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
Nelly.
Ooh, I feel like I'm going to consider. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it. You can check back with me, but I'm going to consider doing a martial art. I think I'm built for it.
I reckon you've got the right attitude.
I reckon I could power lift.
Get
in there.
Yeah, you're not scared about putting your face in someone's armpit?
Absolutely not. I relish the opportunity.
That's what we say about Nell. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having
Love.
me. What a great show.
Oh, it has been delightful. Of course, check out Nelly's podcast, which is available
The Single
wherever.
Life of Us, everywhere.
Yeah.
All the places.
The Single Life of Us, and also check out all of our past episodes, Broad Radio on the Go, and we'll see you next week on Broad Radio.
Bye.
Another runaway city boy getting too high. But boys like you tell pretty lies at 5 a.m.